NeuronuSound.
Cześć! W dzisiejszym odcinku mamy przyjemność zaprezentować Wam rozmowę z gościem specjalnym, profesorem Achermannem z Instytutu na Uniwersytecie w Zurychu i porozmawiamy trochę o śnie. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're gonna discuss some topics on sleep right now.
Okay,
Yes, because this is what you're most keen about, right?
Yeah, I did more theoretical approaches to sleep with modeling and signal. That was in the focus of my work. Yeah.
Do you want to share with us what was the most, maybe prominent, maybe the most interesting, just in your point of view, kind of research you did or you have done in the last years?
Well, the modeling of sleep regulation was what fascinated me from the beginning, and that was also the main focus of my research. But lately we also did work on automatic classification with deep learning networks on sleep or detection of microsleep episodes. So microsleep episodes are
micro us 20 minutes? Micro us 20 minutes, 5 minutes?
No,
Seconds.
few seconds. So
okay.
if you fall, if you lose attention, if you are driving a car and you have a microsleep episode, you may have a crash and it may be dangerous. So it's also important to this whether you have this microsleep episodes.
So this is narcolepsy, or it's not the same?
No, that's not the same. Every one of us may have microsleep episodes.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
These are very short fragments of sleep, yeah.
Okay.
And they are difficult to detect and to visually score them if you do EEG recordings. And we try to then make it more easier for the physicians by doing an automated approach.
Okay, so what are the...
But usually the recording is done like this. There is a test called maintenance of wakefulness test. So you sit for 40 minutes in a chair in a dark room, and you should not fall asleep.
Not?
No, you should not fall asleep.
Okay, so I need to look at myself, be full attention, mindful.
It's dark.
Okay. Do we know if our brain thinks like, oh, I think that's night, or our brain is not so easy to be tricked?
No, I think, well, for me, I would have difficulties to stay awake for 40 minutes because I usually don't sleep enough. That's another topic we can talk about. But it's also something the medical doctors have to do if they have to judge whether somebody is still capable of driving. So in particular, professional drivers, if they have sleep apnea and they are not well treated, there is a large danger that they fall asleep and then they need to be tested, and this is one of the tests they do.
Okay.
And so there is also another test that is called multiple sleep latency test. There you go to bed and you are allowed to fall asleep, and you just look how long it takes to fall asleep, and you do the measurements. How long it takes to fall asleep, and you do the measurements several times a day. So. So that you also see, well, it may be different in the morning or in the evening, yeah. So the morning you just woke up, then it's probably hard to fall asleep. So you have then two components: how long you have been awake, and also the circadian system. So your body clock plays a role. So both contributes. It's difficult to separate it, but. To see the microsleep, then you do the other test, this maintenance of wakefulness. You have to try to stay awake.
Okay. Has been working a lot in their life. Do you think that sleep is prominent, or sleep is something not so necessary because we need a lot of time to do our work, to do our research? What do you think?
That's a strange attitude.
Why so strange? Don't we waste our time when you are sleeping?
Yeah, sure.
Strange. Don't we waste our time when you are sleeping?
Yeah, sure. That's the question. Do you waste your time while you're sleeping? I don't think so. Sleep, we don't know the function or the functions. Probably it's not only one function of sleep, but sleep is really necessary, and you should not mess up with your sleep. Yeah, I often, how much sleep do I need? Yeah, and that's something I can't answer. because it's very individual. So there are short sleepers, there are long sleepers, and the majority of the population sleeps around 7 to 8 hours. But you have to find out for yourself.
Okay.
If you don't sleep enough, at some point your performance breaks down. Yeah. You notice that you fall asleep while you are in a lecture, or you lose your attention, you make mistakes and so on, and you don't sleep enough. So I know that right now in the modern society there is this attitude, well, it's fine enough with 4 hours, yeah. And a lot of people at high level in the industry or so, or management, they don't need much sleep and they perform well, but that's really dangerous, because if you don't sleep enough, you're prone to mistakes.
Okay, and do you think, or that's science now, if it is a myth or it is a true, that some people are night owls and some people are willing to wake up early because just they like it? So do we have a one pattern for everyone to go to bed and wake up at certain hours, or it depends, it's very vulnerable?
It's individual. So there are larks and owls, but these are extremes, yeah, and most of the people are somewhere in between or close to one of them, and it may also change in the course of your life, yeah. So when you get older, you may shift towards earlier bedtimes than it was when you were younger. And also in adolescence, you have the tendency to need more sleep, and often you go to bed later. So there is a mismanagement between what you need and societal implications. Yeah, you have, and societal implications. Yeah, you have to get up.
Consequences.
You have to go. Yeah, you have to get up at a certain point of time because you have to go to school.
But do you think that it would be a good approach to maybe allow people to choose what hours they want to work? Because, as you said, it's individual. And do you think that would be better?
That's hard to say, yeah, because you're also living in a society, and it depends what kind of job you have. So if you are a researcher, I think then it's no problem at all. There are musicians, composers or so. I was in touch with one where he composes at night.
Okay, because
that's his then he functions best. But the consequence is then he has to sleep during the day, and then you also may miss, and your social interactions become difficult, because you are completely shifted to the rest of the society. And if you are working in industry or in a shop or so, I mean, you have the working hours. So,
that's true.
And there you probably have to find a compromise. I mean, I remember I did an apprenticeship before I studied. I don't know whether you have this in Poland, so that you learn a profession that takes this in Poland, so that you learn a profession that takes...
like in the school, right? To have a profession after school?
No, it was not school. I was in electronics, so we worked in a factory, and we learned how to solder electronic components and to build stuff. You learned a profession, yeah, and somebody can.
Yeah, so we have schools at places like that.
Okay, and when I started to do this, that was a long time ago. We had fixed working hours. Yeah, I think everybody had to start at 6:45 in the morning.
That's quite early.
That's quite early. Yeah, and then. And there was no possibility. It was not flexible.
To change those hours.
We had cards to get a stamp when you start, and when it started with red, then you knew you were too late, and then you got a reduction of your salary because you were too late. So they were very strict.
Drastic measurements.
And then at some point there was a change in the society, and we moved to flexible working hours. Yeah. And then some started early and some started later.
Do you think that's a good change?
I think it was a good change in one sense. In the sense that you could really be flexible and adapt to your preferences. But it had also a negative consequence, not biological one, but I was working in a factory where the people came from a large surrounding. And they had some kind of carpooling by the company. So they came with small buses and all together, yeah?
Yes.
And then they started to have individual working hours. They didn't work with nobody.
So they need to manage on their own, right?
And then everybody came with its own car.
Okay.
And then they had the problem that there is not enough parking space and so on. And
so it's a complex
it's
issue.
a complex issue. It's not only about sleep, it's also
other aspects, of course.
And you need to find a compromise somewhere.
Also, I wanted to ask for the end of our conversation, but I think that's quite interesting question, and a lot of people's asking me if it's true, because it's claimed very often, and it's said that it's claimed by science. But do we have to sleep 8 hours every night, or maybe it is true that people like Einstein, like Bonaparte, Napoleon were sleeping just by 2 hours every 4 hours per day? What is science saying about that, or what's your knowledge on that topic?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, but I'm not sure whether this is true about Einstein.
It could be a myth. I agree.
So if we talk about long and short sleep, so Einstein is a long sleeper and Napoleon is a short sleeper.
Okay.
So these are known people we use as an example if we make maybe if we show the distribution.
I just wanted to ask about those differences.
Show the distribution.
I just wanted to ask about those differences between.
8 hours, as I mentioned, it depends on you. You need to figure out how much sleep you need. But your question was you can split.
Yes, can you split your sleep into blocks, and if it's healthy?
Yeah, you can try, and there are a lot of myths around on the internet that you can get along with very little sleep if you just sleep for 15 minutes
every hour.
That's not going to work. So we recently looked at some data. We had adolescents sleeping for 90 minutes. In the end, they had the same amount of sleep opportunity like if you would sleep an entire night. So the time available for sleep was the same. And then we looked at the dissipation of sleep pressure. So that is something you can measure with the EEG and and we noticed there's no chance you never get as much quality sleep as you would sleep with a normal night of sleep.
Okay, so
and that has some consequences, of course.
Okay,
but if there are people crossing the Atlantic in a sailboat or so, then they need some strategies, and they can't sleep for a long time, so they only can take short episodes or naps, but that's an extreme situation, and they have to perform, otherwise it is.
Maybe you want to share with us just with few tricks, maybe how to enhance our sleep, how to help us with healthy sleep in day-to-day life?
There is what we call sleep hygiene, so the best would be to have a more regular sleep-wake cycle, to avoid exciting stuff just shortly before you go to bed. Use your bedroom mainly for sleep. Have a darkened room, not too high temperature, things like this. Don't drink coffee before you go to sleep. For me, it doesn't matter.
But do you think that's placebo, or it really doesn't matter?
No, for me it doesn't matter, but for most people it matters.
Okay. So when you should, usually drink the last cup of your coffee during the day?
Oh, that's also something that is very, very individual. Some people claim that if they drink coffee in the afternoon, they cannot sleep well, and others, they are not affected at all. So one has to find out on your own. That's something from biology. There's a lot of inter-individual variability, and that has to be taken into account.
Of course.
Also, babies, for example, you have the idea a baby has to sleep so many hours, But already as a baby they are short and long sleepers, and if you try to force a short sleeper to sleep longer, it doesn't work and may induce sleep disturbances.
So it can be genetically fixed if you're a longer or short sleeper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we don't know what is determining it, but it's already there at the beginning of but then it changes, of course, in the course of life. As a baby, you sleep more than as an adult. But if your developmental trajectory would then be at a different level than if you are more a long sleeper. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Podcast NeuronuSound tworzony jest przez studentów Koła Naukowego Neuronus Uniwersytetu Jagiellońskiego. Oficjalnym patronem medialnym jest portal Biolog Help.